Putin is busted. Hidden palaces, luxury yachts, billions stashed away, and a trail of money that leads nowhere. The US and European allies have imposed sanctions targeting Putin's personal wealth. Yet the true extent of his fortune remains elusive. While on paper, Putin appears as a modest bureaucrat owning a simple apartment in St. Petersburg and a few Soviet-era vehicles, the reality might be far from it. Reports suggest that Putin's actual wealth is concealed behind a maze of financial schemes. Luxuries like a $100 million mega yacht and a sprawling Black Sea palace have been linked to Putin's inner circle, but never directly to him. But let's rewind a bit. How did we even get here? Let's go back to the time of Panama Papers. Leaks in 2016. The world was taken by storm. Among the myriad of their things, one name stood out like a sore thumb: Vladimir Putin. The report suggested that Putin's assets, primarily properties, were hidden behind intricate financial setups managed by his allies. Among these assets was a Black Sea palace, allegedly built for Putin's personal use. This palace, equipped with luxuries like an underground hockey rink and opulent furnishings, is said to be the largest private residential building in Russia. Yet Putin's official stance? Denial. He claims that nothing listed there has ever belonged to me or my close relatives. But the plot thickens. Bill Browder, a fierce critic of Putin, once stated that Putin's visible watch collection is worth multiples of his official salary. He suggests that Putin's immense wealth is a result of extortion and massive theft from state funds. Some estimates even place Putin's net worth around a staggering $200 billion, potentially making him one of the wealthiest individuals globally. Now, you might be thinking it's almost impossible to hide wealth like this. And why would even Putin possibly do that? Well, we've to understand that Russia is a country where the lines between politics and business often blur, which provides a backdrop to Putin's enigma. Here, the oligarchs, the ultra-wealthy magnates, owe much of their fortunes to political ties. And at the heart of this intricate web sits Putin, managing a mix of power and wealth. Let's talk about that palace near the Black Sea, for example. Spanning over 17,691 acres, it's rumored to be Russia's largest private residence. An underground hockey rink, a private theater, and even toilet brushes worth $850 each. The palace is the epitome of opulence. But who's the owner? Officially, not Putin. However, investigations suggest a different narrative. Funds, allegedly channeled through shell companies and proxies, trace back to Putin's inner circle. But why the secrecy? Some argue that Putin's wealth isn't merely a result of smart investments. It's the outcome of a system where political clout can be directly monetized. Bill Browder, a former investor in Russia turned critic, posits a theory. Putin exerts pressure on Russia's oligarchs, demanding a slice of their profits. It's a silent tax, but instead of filling state coffers, it lines Putin's pockets. Yet, pinning down this wealth is like chasing a ghost. Forbes, known for tracking the fortunes of the world's elite, describes determining Putin's net worth as the most elusive riddle in wealth hunting. But while the public may be in the dark, intelligence agencies from the US and EU might have a clearer picture. If they were to act, the targets would be global, spanning the EU and the US. However, targeting Putin's assets might not deter his political ambitions. It's not about halting his actions, but about sending a message. The sanctions, while possibly only scratching the surface of his fortune, challenge his credibility on the global stage. But the story doesn't end here. The world of international politics and finance is a complex one, where the lines between personal wealth and state assets often blur. For Putin, this line seems almost non-existent. The intertwining of state and personal interests has led to a situation where Putin's personal wealth and Russia's state assets are almost indistinguishable. Let's take a step back and understand the landscape of Russia's economy. Post the Soviet Union's collapse, Russia underwent a massive privatization drive. Vast state assets, from oil companies to metal mines, were sold off, often at bargain prices. This era saw the rise of the oligarchs, Individuals who, through a mix of political connections and business acumen, became billionaires overnight. But as Putin rose to power, he made it clear the oligarchs could keep their wealth, but only if they played by his rules. This arrangement worked well for Putin. He had the oligarchs' loyalty, and in return, they had the state's protection. But this also meant that Putin had a direct line to Russia's most significant economic assets. Over time, Putin's influence over these assets grew. While on paper, these assets belonged to the oligarchs or the state, in reality, Putin had the final say on all major decisions. Let's talk about Gazprom, another example. It's Russia's state-owned gas company and one of the world's largest corporations. But get this, it's not just a company. It's a tool of Russian statecraft. It's been used to exert influence over neighboring countries, reward allies, and punish adversaries. And guess who sits at the helm of this vast empire? Putin. While he doesn't own Gazprom, his influence over its operations is undeniable. This gives him indirect control over a significant portion of Russia's wealth. But Gazprom is just the tip of the iceberg. There's Rosneft, the state-owned oil company, and then there's Rostec, a state-owned conglomerate with interests ranging from defense to electronics. The list goes on. Each of these companies, while state-owned, contributes to Putin's personal power and, by extension, his personal wealth. But it's not just state assets. Then there's the matter of offshore accounts. The Panama Papers leak in 2016 revealed a complex web of offshore companies linked to Putin's inner circle. These companies, often registered in tax havens, are used to move money around, away from prying eyes. While Putin's name doesn't appear directly, the implication is clear. These are his assets. But why go to such lengths to hide this wealth? The answer lies in the nature of Putin's rule. He portrays himself as a defender of Russian interests, a leader who puts the country before himself. Admitting to such vast personal wealth would shatter this image. It would expose the hypocrisy of his rule and could potentially undermine his grip on power. Diving deeper into the corridors of Russian power, it's impossible to ignore the oligarchs, the ultra-rich elite of Russia. These aren't just wealthy businessmen. They're power players, influencers, the kind who can sway public opinion and political decisions. But Putin's relationship with them, it's complicated. Take Mikhail Khodorkovsky, for example. Once Russia's richest man, he dared to defy Putin. The result? His oil company, Yukos, was taken away, and he found himself behind bars. This wasn't just about one man's fall from grace. It was a message to all the oligarchs. Stay in line. But the oligarchs aren't the only players in this game. There's also the Siloviki, a group made up of Putin's trusted former security and military officials. These aren't your average bureaucrats. They're deeply embedded in sectors like energy and defense, wielding significant influence. Their loyalty to Putin has been a cornerstone of his reign. But as the saying goes, power dynamics are always in flux. Seeing Putin's secret fortune revealed, it's so absurd to discover the lengths one might go to maintain power, influence, and secrecy. The revelations of his hidden assets have sent shockwaves around the world, but the true extent of his wealth remains still shrouded in mystery. Because think about it, if that's all we know, what else remains hidden in the shadows?